You clicked because your last blood test came back with a creatinine number that made your doctor pause, and nobody in that office told you the one thing I'm about to. Here's what I found. After 60, 5 ordinary snacks sitting in most grocery stores can help your kidneys do their filtering job better, and the reason they work has been printed in nutrition research for decades. I stumbled onto this while trying to understand why my own uncle's numbers dropped without a single new pill. By the end of this, I'll show you the exact food a kidney clinic in Boston studied, the year the research was buried under a wall of prescriptions, and why anyone with a normal fridge and $40 can start this weekend. I'm not a doctor. I'm just someone who refused to accept watch it and wait as an answer. It started with a printout on my uncle's kitchen table last spring. His creatinine had crept up, his doctor shrugged, and the only advice was to cut protein and come back in 3 months. That shrug bothered me. 3 months of doing nothing, while a number that measures how well your kidneys clean your blood keeps climbing? I couldn't let it go. So I started reading everything I could find, and what I found didn't match what he was told. Let me explain what creatinine even is, because once you understand it, everything I discovered makes sense. Creatinine is a waste product. Your muscles make it every single day just by moving and living. Healthy kidneys pull it out of your blood and send it out when you urinate. So when the number in your blood goes up, it usually means your kidneys are working harder than they should to clear it. Doctors watch it because it's one of the cleanest windows into kidney function they have. But here's the first thing that didn't add up for me. If creatinine is partly about how much waste your body makes and how well your kidneys flush it, then what you put in your body every day should matter enormously. And yet my uncle was handed one vague line about protein and sent home. No mention of specific foods. No mention of the compounds that researchers have been measuring since the 1980s. Nothing you could actually hold in your hand and eat. The first clue came from a place I didn't expect. Not a hospital. A university extension bulletin. Land-grant universities in America have these quiet little departments called extension services. They've existed since 1914, created by something called the Smith-Lever Act, and their whole job was to take science out of the laboratory and hand it to ordinary families, farm wives, working households. People who needed to know how to eat well on almost nothing. For over 100 years, these offices publish plain, tested, practical guidance, and almost nobody reads them anymore. I found bulletins describing which foods put the least strain on the kidneys and which ones quietly help the body manage its waste load, not miracle cures. Real food chemistry measured and written down decades before anyone was selling supplements for it. And that's when I understood the shape of what I was chasing. The knowledge wasn't lost because it was wrong. It was lost because it wasn't profitable. You can't patent an apple. You can't put a subscription on a red pepper. So the information drifted to the back shelf while the front of the store filled up with pills. So let me give you the first snack, because this is where the trail turns from theory into something you can taste. Blueberries. I know how ordinary that sounds, but stay with me because the specifics are what matter. Blueberries are naturally low in potassium, low in phosphorus, and low in sodium, which is exactly the combination that struggling kidneys need, because those 3 minerals are the ones that build up dangerously when filtration slows down. Most sweet snacks are loaded with at least one of them. Blueberries dodge all 3. But the real reason I circled them in my notes was the anthocyanins. Those are the deep blue-purple pigments, and they're powerful antioxidants. Researchers have studied how oxidative stress, this slow internal rusting from unstable molecules, damages the tiny filtering units inside your kidneys called nephrons. You have about 1 million of them per kidney, and here's the hard truth. You don't grow new ones. Once a nephron dies, it's gone. So protecting the ones you still have after 60 isn't a small thing, it's everything. A handful of blueberries, about a half cup, gives you those pigments without the mineral load that would otherwise make your kidneys work overtime. That's the whole point. You're feeding the repair crew without adding to the mess they have to clean. I tested this myself before I told anyone. I swapped my afternoon cracker habit for a small bowl of blueberries for 6 weeks. I'm not going to pretend one snack rebuilt my body, but I felt the difference in something simple. I stopped reaching for the salty processed stuff that I now know was quietly making things worse. So one clue clicked into place. Low mineral, high antioxidant snacks make sense. But that raised a much bigger question that kept me up at night. If something this simple was documented this clearly, why had my uncle's doctor never said the word blueberry once? Who decided this wasn't worth mentioning? The answer starts to get uncomfortable here, so let me keep pulling the thread. The second snack sent me back into the research, and this one surprised me more than the first, because it's a vegetable most people throw in a salad and forget. Red bell peppers. For years I assumed peppers were just crunch and color. Then I read how nephrology dietitians rank foods for kidney patients, and red bell peppers keep showing up near the top of the recommended list. The reason is almost funny once you see it. They're extremely low in potassium, which is rare for something so nutritious. And they're packed with vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin B6, and a compound called lycopene. Potassium is the villain hiding in plain sight for anyone with weakening kidneys. Healthy kidneys balance it perfectly. Struggling kidneys let it build up in the blood, and too much potassium can affect your heart rhythm in ways that land people in the emergency room. That's why so many healthy foods like bananas, potatoes, and tomatoes are actually risky when your filtering slows down. Nobody warns you that the health advice you followed your whole life can flip on you after 60. But a red bell pepper gives you a mountain of nutrition with almost none of that potassium danger. You can slice one up, dip it in a little olive oil or hummus, and eat it raw in the afternoon. That's it. No cooking, no recipe, no special store. And here's the detail that made me sit back. This isn't new. Home economics guides from the middle of the last century, the kind of thrift and nutrition booklets that came out during and after the war years, already treated raw peppers and fresh produce as the backbone of a body-protecting diet. People ate this way because processed food was expensive and scarce, they were accidentally protecting their kidneys and their hearts, and they didn't even have the vocabulary for it. Then convenience food arrived, and within a generation, the shelf-stable, salt-loaded, phosphate-injected snack took over the American kitchen. And that word phosphate is where this whole story stops being an accident and starts looking deliberate. Because here's what I learned. Food manufacturers add phosphates to processed foods on purpose, to extend shelf life, keep moisture in, and improve texture. Your body absorbs those added phosphates far more easily than the natural kind, and excess phosphorus is brutal on failing kidneys. It pulls calcium out of your bones and hardens your arteries, and on many labels it's barely disclosed you're eating it without knowing. So think about what that means. The same industry that filled the shelves with kidney-stressing additives is the one whose products replaced the simple fresh foods that protected people for generations. Someone profited every step of the way. And the person paying the price, decades later, is you, sitting in a doctor's office, looking at a creatinine number nobody will fully explain. That realization is what turned my casual reading into a full-blown investigation, because I stopped asking what helps and started asking who benefited from me not knowing this. Therefore, I went looking for harder proof, and I found it in a place with a real address and a real date. The third snack takes us to Boston. There's a body of kidney research that came out of Boston area medical institutions studying how specific dietary patterns affect kidney decline over time. And one food kept anchoring the healthiest results. Not a supplement, not a drug, but a simple shift toward plant-based, antioxidant-rich, low-phosphorus eating. Buried in that work is the humble apple. An apple is almost the perfect kidney snack. And once you know why, you'll never look at the fruit bowl the same way. It's low in potassium, low in phosphorus, low in sodium, and high in fiber, especially a type of soluble fiber called pectin. That fiber matters more than people realize because your gut and your kidneys are partners in waste removal. When your gut works well and your digestion is smooth, less waste circulates back into your blood for your kidneys to deal with. An apple a day was never just a cute rhyme. It was measured wisdom. And the anti-inflammatory compounds in apples, especially the skin, help calm the chronic low-grade inflammation that quietly grinds down kidney function year after year. Inflammation is the slow fire. Foods like this are the water. Now here's the part of the trail that genuinely stopped me. That old saying, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away," has a traceable origin. It comes from Wales, and the earliest printed version appears in the 1860s, phrased a little differently. Eat an apple on going to bed, and you'll keep the doctor from earning his bread. Sit with that wording for a second. Even 160 years ago, ordinary people had noticed that this simple fruit reduced their need for a physician. They didn't have the word nephron. They didn't have blood panels. But they had generations of observation, and they wrote it down in a rhyme, so it couldn't be forgotten. Except it was forgotten, or more accurately, it was drowned out. Because a rhyme about a free fruit doesn't make anyone rich, and the modern food and health industry has no incentive to remind you that the cheapest thing in the produce aisle might be doing more for your kidneys than the expensive stuff behind the pharmacy counter. So 3 clues now sat on my table. Blueberries, red peppers, apples, all low in the dangerous minerals, all high in the protective compounds, all documented, all cheap, all quietly pushed aside. But I still had 2 snacks left to find, and the 4th one led me somewhere I didn't expect at all, because it challenged something I thought I knew about protein. Now, I want to talk directly to you. If you're sitting there thinking this is all fine for people with money and time, but your budget is tight and your kitchen is small and your energy after 60 isn't what it used to be, this next part is specifically for you. I build it for the person who can't and won't buy anything fancy, who wants something they can do tonight with what's already in the house. Stay with me, because this is the most practical stretch of the whole trail. The 4th snack is egg whites. Here's the contradiction that hooked me. My uncle was told to cut protein, generic advice, and yet the research on kidney nutrition is far more precise than that, because not all protein is equal in how it affects your kidneys. Some protein sources leave behind a heavy load of phosphorus and acid that your kidneys have to neutralize. Others are gentle. Egg whites are one of the gentlest, high-quality proteins you can eat. That gap is where the trail started, and the deeper I went, the more I realized somebody benefits from that gap staying empty. If you want to go even further down this trail, the full documented picture, the mineral charts, the historical sources, the complete 5-food framework laid out in one place, I put everything into a digital book. It's called First Fixes, Deeper Fixes, and the Full System, and it covers exactly what I uncovered, organized, so you can hand it to a family member or bring it to your next appointment. You'll find the link in the description below, or just keep watching, because I'm going to give you the core of it right here. Now let me bring you back to the trail, because the 3rd snack takes us to Boston, and this is where the proof stops being circumstantial. Egg whites give you nearly complete protein, the kind your body uses efficiently, with very little phosphorus and almost no fat. For someone trying to protect their kidneys, that ratio is gold. Your body still needs protein to hold on to muscle, and here's a detail nobody explained to my uncle. If you slash protein too hard after 60, you lose muscle, and losing muscle brings its own cascade of problems with frailty and falls. The goal was never zero protein. The goal was smarter protein. So here's what you can do tonight, with nothing special. Take 2 or 3 eggs, separate out the whites, and cook them plain in a dry nonstick pan or with a tiny bit of olive oil. Season them with herbs, black pepper, a squeeze of lemon, garlic powder, anything except a pile of salt. That's a kidney-friendly snack that costs pennies and takes 4 minutes. You already own the pan. You probably already own the eggs. And if separating eggs feels fussy, most stores sell cartons of liquid egg whites already separated. Pour, cook, done. I keep one in my fridge now, and it changed my whole afternoon snacking because I stopped reaching for cheese and crackers, which are loaded with the exact sodium and phosphates that make kidneys struggle. Let me give you a few more no-cost moves from this same stretch of the trail, because the egg white is just the doorway. First, rinse your canned foods. If you use canned beans or vegetables because they're cheap and they last, draining and rinsing them under the tap can wash away a large share of the added sodium. You paid nothing extra, and you just lighten the load on your kidneys. Second, learn the trick that dialysis kitchens have used for years to lower the potassium in potatoes. If you love potatoes but you've been warned off them, you can peel them, cut them small, and soak them in water for a couple of hours, then boil them in fresh water. That leaching process pulls a meaningful amount of potassium out into the water, which you throw away. It's an old institutional technique, and almost no one tells home cooks about it. Third, water itself. Plain water is the most underrated kidney tool there is, and it costs nothing from your own tap. Staying properly hydrated helps your kidneys flush waste, including creatinine. I'm not telling you to drown yourself, and if your doctor has restricted your fluids for a heart or kidney reason, you follow that instruction over anything I say. But for many people after 60, mild everyday dehydration is quietly making their numbers look worse than their kidneys actually are. Notice what all of this has in common. Not one thing on that list requires a professional, a prescription, or a purchase you can't afford. It's the food equivalent of the household knowledge those old extension bulletins were built to spread. Plain, tested, and yours the moment you hear it. But even as I was testing all this in my own kitchen, one question kept gnawing at me, and it's the question that finally cracked the whole investigation open. If these foods were this simple and this documented, there had to be one central reason the knowledge got buried so thoroughly. Not just neglect, a mechanism. And that's what the fifth snack finally revealed. The fifth snack is olive oil, and to understand why it matters, I had to understand how the burial actually happened. Extra virgin olive oil is nearly free of phosphorus, sodium, and potassium, which already makes it a safe fat for kidney health. But its real power is oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that fights inflammation, and the antioxidant compounds that come with cold-pressed, unrefined oil. Study after study on Mediterranean eating patterns, including work following older adults for years, links this style of eating to slower kidney decline and better heart health. And your kidneys and heart rise or fall together because they share the same blood vessels and the same pressures. Using olive oil instead of butter, margarine, or processed vegetable spreads is one of the simplest swaps you can make. Drizzle it on your peppers. Cook your egg whites in it. Pour a little over steamed vegetables. It turns 3 of the other snacks I gave you into something richer and more satisfying, which is exactly why people stick with it. But here's the piece of the trail that finally made everything make sense, and I need you to follow this carefully because this is the answer I promised you at the start. While I was digging through the history, I kept running into the same turning point over and over. The rise of the modern processed convenience food system in the second half of the 20th century didn't just add bad foods to our diet, it replaced an entire framework of eating that had protected people for generations, and the specific casualty was the everyday knowledge of which ordinary foods keep the body's filtering systems clean. Those old home economics departments and extension services I mentioned, the ones created back in 1914, were systematically defunded and shrunk over the following decades. The teaching of practical nutrition in homes and schools faded, and into that vacuum stepped an industry that had every reason to keep you buying products instead of preparing simple food, and a healthcare system increasingly built around managing disease with prescriptions rather than preventing it with a grocery list. So the answer to my whole investigation, the thing I chased from my uncle's kitchen table all the way through university bulletins and Boston research and a Welsh rhyme from the 1860s, was this. The single most powerful, most buried secret about creatinine and kidney health after 60 is not any one exotic food. It's the recovered principle that ties all 5 snacks together, and here it is stated plainly, the way those old bulletins would have said it. Eat foods that are naturally low in sodium, potassium, and phosphorus, and rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds, and you reduce the daily load on your kidneys while protecting the nephrons you have left. Blueberries, red peppers, apples, egg whites, and olive oil are simply the 5 easiest, cheapest, most available members of that family. Once you understand the principle, you're no longer dependent on anyone to hand you a list. You can walk into any store on earth and know what belongs in your basket. That's the part they can't sell you, and that's exactly why nobody made sure you knew it. Let me make it even more concrete, because I want you to actually use this, not just nod at it. Here's how I put the 5 together into a single day, and it costs less than one fast food meal. In the morning, a small bowl of blueberries. Mid-morning, if I'm hungry, a few egg whites cooked in a teaspoon of olive oil with black pepper and herbs. In the afternoon, a sliced red bell pepper, sometimes with a light drizzle of that same olive oil. Late in the day, an apple, skin and all, eaten slowly, water throughout from my own tap. That rotation hits every part of the principle. Low mineral load, high antioxidants. Gentle protein, anti-inflammatory fat, steady hydration. And notice what's missing from that day. No packaged snack with a phosphate additive you can't pronounce. No salty crackers. No processed cheese. No sugary drink. You're not just adding good foods. You're crowding out the ones that were quietly making your numbers worse. That's the whole game after 60. It's not about one heroic ingredient. It's about which foods win the space in your day. I want to be honest with you about the limits, because I promised myself I'd never do to you what that doctor's office did to my uncle, which is talk in vague half-truths. Food is not a replacement for medical care. If your creatinine is high, you need a doctor tracking it. And if you've been given specific restrictions on potassium, protein, or fluid, those come from someone who can see your labs, and they override every general suggestion I've made here. What I'm handing you is the missing half of the conversation, the half about what you actually eat between appointments, the half that got buried. And here's why I trust what I found. Every piece of it checks out against multiple independent sources. The mineral content of these foods is measured and public. The connection between oxidative stress and nephron damage is established science. The Mediterranean pattern research on older adults is real and ongoing. The potato leaching technique is used in actual renal kitchens. The apple rhyme traces to the 1860s in Wales. None of this is a hunch. It's a trail of documented facts that were scattered across places most people never look, which is exactly why it felt hidden. The reason it felt like a secret is that no single company, doctor, or advertiser had any reason to gather these pieces into one clear picture for you. A blueberry farmer isn't going to teach you about egg whites. A cardiologist isn't going to hand you a lecture on canned bean rinsing. The knowledge was fragmented, and fragmented knowledge is easy to lose. Someone had to sit down and reassemble it. This time, that someone was me, and now it's yours. Think about what that fragmentation cost people. Years of watching a number climb while being told to wait. Money spent on supplements that promised what a red pepper delivers for $1. The slow, avoidable loss of nephrons that could have been protected if anyone had simply said, "Here are 5 things to eat and here's why." That's the real price of buried knowledge, not just dollars. Function, independence, the years you get to spend feeling like yourself. So let me leave you with the picture the whole trail finally painted for me. This knowledge existed. Ordinary families lived by it, back when nothing was wasted, and food was medicine because medicine was expensive. It was written into rhymes and bulletins and thrift guides. Then it was buried, not by accident, but by an industry and a system that profit when you're dependent and confused. A few careful researchers and a few dusty documents preserved the pieces. The trail led here. And now you're holding the recovered thing in your hands, and no one can take it back out. I felt something lift the day this all came together, and I think you'll feel it too. It's the feeling of getting back something that was quietly taken from you. The simple confidence that you can care for your own body with what's already in your kitchen, without asking permission and without opening your wallet for someone else's profit. If you're the kind of person who has always suspected that the most useful knowledge gets buried precisely because it's free, then you already understand what this channel is really about. We recover what was hidden, one trail at a time. Now I want to hear from you, and I'm asking directly because I know this audience doesn't comment unless someone asks. Tell me this. Had you ever heard that soaking and boiling potatoes in fresh water pulls the potassium out the way renal kitchens do it? Just type the word potatoes and tell me yes or no, and tell me where you're watching from. I read these, and that one clue surprised more people than anything else I found. And if this reached you, subscribe and stand with the people who are recovering this lost practical knowledge before it disappears for good, because the next trail I'm following is a strange one. It's about a single, common kitchen ingredient that people in the early 1900s used to keep their blood pressure steady. An ingredient that's probably in your cabinet right now, sitting there ordinary and forgotten. I found the first clue, and it doesn't lead where you'd expect. I'll show you the whole trail next time. If your last blood test worried you, this is where I don't stop. Inside my membership, the Timeless Ways Circle, I pick up right where we left off. And you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You'd be joining thousands of practical folks like you already there. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime.